So, welcome everybody to the Projectworks podcast. I'm Mark Orttung, CEO of Projectworks, and like to welcome Dominique back as my co-host for episode 2 for 2026.
Hey, thanks. Very great to be back here for round two. Quick intro, Dominique Rennell. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Projectworks, and I have spent my career building sales, go-to-market teams, customer-facing, account management, and super happy to be here talking to you today on the podcast. First up, we have a little bit of an apology. Doug Taylor, who is one of our incredible founders and also our Chief Operating Officer, is unable to join us as was schedulally advertised. The reason for that is Doug has had some unscheduled minor medical issues due to cancer treatment that he has been undergoing.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. One, Doug has been fighting this cancer for about 6 months and actually getting kind of an optimistic prognosis. So we're
Been
all
amazing.
really excited to see that.
Yeah.
And two, it's just a bummer that Doug isn't here. Doug is just an amazing
The
presence,
best.
and
Yeah.
he speaks in something we call Dougisms, and they're just nobody else can pull them off the way he does, but he
Yeah.
just can. His turn of phrase is awesome. So we will get him on an episode sometime soon, and do a proper run through together about the book.
Totally. And I know we're gutted. We were gutted, of course, that Doug had to go back and have some sort of unplanned stuff going on. We're really looking forward to having a chat with him. You're right, Mark. He has great banter and really good vibes. We're sending him really good vibes and hoping he feels much better this week. But no pressure, Mark, because you did co-author the book, but it's just you and me here now, okay? So
Yep,
charging on.
awesome.
We are here. Oh, look, it's just come up, the results of the poll. Cool. So I can see here, oh, a little bit of a split. Can you see that coming up, Mark?
Yeah, yeah. Winning
Winning
new
new
work
work,
is what I would
close
figure.
to
That's
my
what
own
I spend
heart,
all
I
my
can
time on.
imagine. Keeps people up at night constantly. Uh,
Yeah.
Hiring great people, definitely, especially when you're scaling. That is super hard to find people that are going to be as passionate and care as much about the mission as you.
And my own time, actually, maybe a symptom of one of our walls that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pulling
Um,
in third there. Actually tied with hiring great people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the balance, eh? How do you clone yourself? And that's sort of to intro that. That's what we're here to talk about. We're here to chat about scaling to 50 million. So common obstacles that come up. Really interesting to see that those were the results of how people are feeling out there today. Not surprising, actually. Mark and I were having a little bit of chat before we came on about what it would be, right? We were talking about the winning new work and hiring great people, sort of like cloning the founder. How do you do that? Which I think can also be a really hard one to do. What we are going to cover today is Mark and Doug have been busy writing a book, the 50 million consulting firm. Very cool. Mark, you wrote a book. How does it feel?
It was good. It was a lot of work, actually. It's fun
Surprising.
to work with Doug on it,
Yeah.
and kind of compare. He did a lot. He was a founder of Provoke,
Yeah.
so he did the 0 to 5, 10, 20 million. I took over Nexient at about 39 million, kind of broke
Yeah.
things to get it to 34 million for a while. And in retrospect, I was dealing with one of the walls we write about. I didn't understand that at the time. I just thought I was screwing everything up, which I was, but there was also something else going on in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really great to collaborate with him on this book, and
Super cool. I think
yeah,
you're like the different views there, for people who are listening in. Provoke was or still is, or when Doug was there, still around, a really successful professional services sort of digital agency based primarily in New Zealand and had offices overseas. How would you pitch Nexient, Mark?
yeah, we were a 100% US software outsourcer.
Yeah,
And when I joined, we did primarily just the engineering part. Like, you have an idea, we'll build it.
yeah,
And we transformed the company into helping do research, design, and strategy, and then building the software.
cool.
So we became these sort of product pods. And
Yeah,
that helped differentiate us, which we'll get into, and then helped us to grow quite a bit.
Cool. And I feel like this is not the first time, well, that we have spoken about, no surprise, and you have spoken about like growth walls, sort of like what they are, how you see them, how you break through them. You've been pretty hot on this, Mark, actually, since you've come to Projectworks. How long have you been in the CEO seat now?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. And so you produced some pretty cool stuff around this before you did a full-blown book. I know you did a bit of a cheat sheet, so I think that might be shared as part of this somewhere in a link somewhere on the podcast.
Yep.
But when we were talking about what to discuss today, especially with a little bit of pivot, with Doug being a bit unwell in a way, we wanted to talk through growth walls, actually what they are. I also think like a growth wall sounds like a very fancy thing. It really is coming up against something, that is an obstacle that's hard to push through, something that's it's not surprising. How do you juggle these things going on in your business? We want to talk through what has to change in a consulting firm's operating model as you look to scale beyond 5 million revenue. And also, again, near and dear to my heart, how you win work across the journey. Really open to audience participation. If you've got any questions coming on, I think you can add those in the chat. That would be really great to see. We might ask a few on the way. But you've had a bit of a pitch of what Nexient was. Talk me about landing that gig, Mark. When you landed the CEO gig, what was the pitch to you that you were supposed to achieve within a period of time, which normally comes when you get a gig like that?
Yeah. Oh man, so many things. So they they were 5 years old as a company, so they'd gone 0 to 39 million in 5 years. And if you
Yeah,
drew the line and kept going, it just went up and to the right. So the expectations on me were like, let's get this thing to 100 and 200 million in the next few years
yeah, right.
because, and I didn't really know enough to say, well, that's not going to happen.
Sure.
Like,
You probably
like,
wouldn't have gotten the gig if you had admitted that,
yeah,
or if they
right,
wouldn't have hired
yeah. Or
someone
if
who
I had
thought that
known
they
that,
couldn't.
like, I think it
Yeah,
was good that
relentless
I was like
pursuit.
too dumb
Yeah,
to realize.
yeah.
But like all of my incentives, everything was set around like get this thing to
The
200
crazy
million
number. Yeah,
in a couple of years, maybe
yeah,
2, 3 years, something like that. And so, yeah, what I didn't really appreciate, well, let me get back to you. Actually, I had been doing bouncing between consulting and SaaS. So I had been doing SaaS
right.
for the 16 years prior, and I was talking to Niraj, who's both the founder of Nexient and also a venture capitalist, about software companies in his portfolio and trying out being a CEO on one of those. But they were all early stage. They all needed to fundraise. And the play was come in as CEO, you have 3 months to raise money, maybe six. So you can't really change the product or the team or the positioning or anything, just raise money.
Yeah.
And if it goes well, you'll raise money and then you keep going. If not, you're going to be there to oversee shutting it down. Is basically what sort of
Which,
and it,
just to interject there, I have also been on the consulting side and SaaS side. And when I was just on the consulting side, I just had no idea the amount of effort that took to raise money. It sounds like a crazy thing when you say it out loud, but it is all consuming. Like saying that you don't have time to, you're right, restructure your team, go out and pivot your customer base. Like that is a full-time job going out and fundraising, right? So yeah,
yeah. So I looked at 2 or 3 companies, and I just felt like I had never been a CEO. I'm probably not going to raise money, like just if you had to put odds on it. So I'm going to be like my first try at CEO. I'm going to shut down a company in nine
yeah,
months or
that does
12
not
months.
sound
Like
like a great track. Yeah.
no. And Niraj kept saying, I've got this services company. You used to work at Accenture, and this would be great for you.
Yeah.
And the more I looked at it, it was profitable. And one of my board members at Bill.com had told me at one point it would be irresponsible to turn a profit at this stage. And I always thought that was such a weird statement.
Yeah.
Like, really
Who
irresponsible to
doesn't want to
turn a
be in profit?
profit? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was kind of attracted to a longer runway, or you could think of it as more time if I do screw up to kind of recover. Uh, and being profitable and trying to understand
Yeah.
how those businesses run. So
Yeah.
yeah, that all led me to want to go there.
Awesome. So great. So how long was it before you hit your first growth wall, as we're calling it?
Well, so I think the first year I got us from 39 million to 40 million. I was just looking at this. So we
Yeah.
grew a little bit.
A million.
Wasn't,
Great.
the line
Nothing.
didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but
Didn't
the
go
line
down
had gone
though.
like this
Yeah.
before and now it was going like that. And so that wasn't popular.
Sure.
So then, and I did, so mostly that was playing it safe, not changing anything. And then
Okay.
I started trying to change things. What I realized at the time, I didn't know it was a wall, was everything flowed through the prior CEO, the founder.
Yeah,
And
right.
so the whole team would bring me everything. Like,
Okay.
here's a pitch. It's tomorrow. Can you check my slides? And I was like, no, like I don't have time for all. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
want to be the center of everything.
totally.
But I think that's how they had gotten the firm to grow so well. It's kind of what you should do is
Yeah, all
the
in.
the founder is all in, and they had kind of gotten past the first wall where the founder is the total bottleneck, and now we're at the level of the founder has a bunch of smart people who work directly for them, are
Yeah,
very hands-on, and still let the founder make all the calls. So the founder is still a bottleneck, just it's a
yeah.
bigger bottleneck than earlier in the first wall. And so
Yeah,
I was just like, this is weird. I don't know how to work this way. And I was sort of trying to figure out how to decentralize it. I later realized that was the trick we needed to get in place to get past that wall.
yeah,
It took
right.
me probably 3 or 4 years to realize in retrospect that that's what had happened. Nobody told me
Yeah.
at the time.
Now you say that it was like being the founder and surrounded by people. Just thinking about our poll, winning new work and hiring great people are two of the things that people are top of mind that you've just described. I think it must be, and this is coming from my experience as well. I've had a couple of really great jobs where I've come into an organization where I'm a sales leader and one of the first sales leaders for a founder, or I'm coming in with they have not found the right sales leader for a founder, like breaking through that. Because you're right, even if the leader isn't the salesperson, they're normally the one that checks the slides, connects with the client, like they're quite crucial. So did you already have a group of people that could be trusted around you and they just weren't doing the work? Like, because that's quite a hard thing, finding the right people to then pass that over to that will do as good a job as a founder, care as much, and just be a good fit.
I think they could do that. So they could do the work, but what we needed to switch to was could they build a team and own a part
Yeah, right.
of the company that I didn't have to be involved with every
Yeah,
day. They weren't that team. They were
yeah,
the team that would extend me
yeah.
and do all the, very hands-on. So that was the transition we needed to make. It might be good to go like just a quick overview of like the journey
Yes.
starting at
Yeah. Okay.
zero.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Um, so it's a bit contradictory the way I would advise people. So in the beginning, when you're at zero and you're just starting out, if you're the founder or founders, you should do everything. You should sell, you should check in, you should make sure delivery is going well. You are the reason the company is there.
Yeah.
It's probably, your reputation that's getting the first few clients. You've got to be involved in everything. And then the contradictory part is wall number one, you will run out of time. It's
Of course.
somewhere around 5
Yeah.
million. That
Yeah.
number is kind of just a guess. Like it kind of
Yeah.
varies by history and varies, a lot of different things. But
Yeah.
um, at some point, wall number one is you can't do everything anymore. And even though we told you you should, now you're the problem. And so that's where to get through that, you hire like somebody to do sales, somebody to do delivery,
Yeah.
but they're a leader, but they're a very hands-on leader. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
They're
so it's
still like
like,
like you might be going from a team of 10 to a team of 15. You're still all in one office. They're still very
yeah,
hands-on. They're not leading big teams, which is the finding the right people. It's interesting you say that as well. It might be somewhere around 5 million, but I guess that's anyone who's listening or watching that is at that stage, that might be a good takeaway. Like sit down and have a think of when that point would be for you, when you need to go from being all in and you doing everything to finding those people, because finding those people can be the really hard part. Like, as I said earlier, I've come into organizations where they're like, you're our third try at a head of sales that gets our company or is the right, that's such a tricky to trust someone, to really do that. But they've got to be hands-on. You're right. They've still got to do everything. You're not going to give them a
And
big
it's
piece
very
of data.
different if you're at this stage. So like
Yeah,
if we were bringing you in at this stage, we'd be like,
yeah,
okay, you are going to personally like grow
do
our
it all.
sales. You're
Yeah,
going to do
totally.
everything, but you're still going to have the founder or founders kind of engaged and
Yeah,
buying into everything. And then at the next step, which is where I was, even that, like the founder runs out of time again, even though they have people helping
yes,
them on
yeah,
everything. And my mental model was if I'm stuck at it was about 35 million, maybe I could get five people who can each run a part of the business and
yeah,
they can each grow that to 35 million. So it kind of like
totally.
expands our wall
Yeah,
to five times where we are. So I did that, but that took me a long time to find the right people, get
yeah,
them on board, and begin to build a model where they were sort of running parts of the company and effectively could just check in with me on a weekly basis
yeah.
and tell me how it's going and not like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. Like, what do you think? Can I do it?
Which is
Yeah,
like the narrative when I have worked at larger organizations, when it's like when you're a leader of a team, it's like that is your business unit. Like that's that terminology, that's your
yeah.
business unit, that is your business that you are running with your, your line of profit or revenue or like that's sort of that bigger. And you're right that how do you get to that stage? But I guess that's what we're talking about. It's a tricky one to do. How do you grow it and keep the same people or who are the right people on the bus?
So when you got pulled in to lead sales, was it the earlier version where you had to do everything, or was it like build us a sales
I've done
organization?
both. I've done both. And
Yeah.
I think I think that's been a really great for me in my career because I guess I really admire people who can be hands-on. I think that's
Mhm.
a characteristic that's really admirable in people, if you can lead a team, but you can also get in there and do the stuff.
Mhm.
So a bit of both sometimes, I think, which has been a good opportunity. But yeah, it has been, I think, that part of the scaling part has also been the hard. Like when you come in and it's just you and the founder and you're selling, that can almost seem quite straightforward. When you're then right now, you need to hire a bunch of, five people and get them to replicate that. It's now less about my individual talent and more about my talent to craft and shape a whole team to be,
Mm.
be able to
Yeah.
replicate that.
Very
And you're right,
different
that is
skill, actually,
interesting.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Okay, so you've got the wall of like doing it all yourself, or the phases, I guess. Wall,
Yeah.
hire someone, wall. Now that person needs to hire someone and run as a business unit. Where are we in the Mark Nexiant story now at this stage?
Well, so I think by the time I finished sort of breaking things, we got down to about 34 million in revenue.
Yeah,
This was about 2.5 years in.
yeah.
So
Wait, where did you
uh,
start?
I started in
Or
2014.
like
So this
what was
is
revenue when you started? Sorry, if
oh,
you're down.
30,
Yeah.
39.
Okay, and then you.
So
All right.
year
Okay.
one, we got to 40, and then year two, I think, was 34, something like that.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
popular with my
No, I
board.
don't, that would not have been good fun board meetings for you, I imagine.
Yeah, and I was just looking at this because somebody was asking me about it. I had a couple quarters where like we'd grow 2%, quarter over quarter, 4%.
Yeah.
Then we lost 4%, lost 10%, and lost 10% 3 quarters in a row.
Yeah.
So it was just like fell off a cliff. Um, yeah, and I thought the board was going to fire me. That was kind of seemed like the obvious thing to do.
I mean,
And I
not
talked to
totally
him
out of the
about,
blue there if your numbers are going in the wrong way, something to
yeah.
consider. Yeah.
And I got to talk to them about it later, and they debated it. And I actually started a meeting and said, I think you guys are probably debating whether to fire me, so let's talk about it. And I kind of put up my
But
pros and my cons.
yeah,
Um, but I think they were worried about the risk of yet another change. And if the
sure.
next
Yeah,
person
of
comes
course.
in and
Go
doesn't
all
figure
over
it out,
again.
then
Yeah.
yeah. So luckily for me, they gave me another few quarters and we started to turn it around.
Awesome.
And then actually from the bottom, after we dropped 10% 2 quarters in a row, I looked at 4 quarters later, we had grown 39% from that
Wow.
rock bottom. And then we grew 5 years in a row at about 40% a year. Um, so we got the right people in, they could have their own part of the company, and we started to really differentiate. So we
Right.
kind of moved from, we'll do, when I joined, we were kind of like, we'll do anything related to software.
Yeah.
So, if you need something rolled out like SharePoint, sure, we can do that. Or some other random content management system, sure, we can do that. And we
Yeah.
kind of dialed it in and said, we're just going to do custom software and it's going to have a great user experience and that's going to differentiate us.
Now, that's interesting because I have been part of a business in New Zealand before in a similar thing, services business, technology, which I think can not be uncommon. Technology moves really fast, right? So there's these opportunities come up and you just kind of say yes to them because you want to embed yourself in a customer. And, it's not uncommon for salespeople just say, yes, we've got this great opportunity. Why are you going to say no to this? You're so
Yeah.
hungry for growth. And it can end up that you're doing a lot of different things. And there is that time where you go, hey, at what point do we brave enough to say we're quite clear on what we want to do? And I guess that's the nervous point, right? I guess that's another growth wall. Like, when are you prepared to say, no, we don't do that anymore, and say no to potential work because you're so confident that
Yeah, it's
that investment.
terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like we did that. So we said, okay, we're going to just do this custom software. And we kind of
Yeah.
kept working on trying to boil it down. We wound up with life's too short for crappy software. And
Yeah.
it ended
Which
up
is.
being this thing that kind of resonated with people. The idea
Yeah.
was we all have non-software products that have really bad software in them. So like your thermostat or your oven or your
Right. Yeah.
car,
Yeah.
like all have this just really bad software in it. And a lot of our clients made stuff that had really bad software in it, and we are like, we
Yeah.
can help you with that. That'll be our
Yeah.
our way of standing out. So I remember we tried it on our first prospect. The very first slide before we introduced our company or anything was we just put life's too short for crappy
Crappy
software
software.
up and had no idea like what are they going to say?
Such a good
And
word, crappy, though, isn't it? Because it's like not
yeah,
offensive, but we all get exactly like crappy, no one wants that. And
yeah,
crappy also kind of signifies that it sort of works. It's just a bit crappy, I like it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty tense for the most. We didn't really know. They weren't that, um, like you couldn't read them. We didn't know them that well. It was like our
Love a
first
pitch that
big
feels like
meeting with
cold.
them.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they hired us and they said it was because you guys don't sound like anyone else. You just have this
Awesome.
very honest view
Yeah.
of the world. And yeah, so that was the beginning of like, okay, we're not doing all this random stuff we used to do. We're
Yeah.
just going to do software. And that was actually what I think drove the growth. That plus getting the right people to
Yeah.
own different parts of the company. Those two things drove the
So once
growth.
you've got people sort of that really clear view. And I agree that can be hard. And I think, again, coming from sort of the seats I've been in with sales, account management, customer success, it's hard to then say, hey, I know we're going all guns are blazing, but we're now going to say no to these sorts of opportunities. You've got to, can sometimes be a hard boat to turn internally to say we're not doing
Yeah.
this stuff anymore. All these things that we've been upskilling on to help with customers, we're not doing it. All these things that we've been prepared to sell, we're not selling them anymore. And people can, internally, if they're not really clear on the vision, it can be kind of a deal, quite a big deal for
Yeah.
people.
Hopefully it helps. Well, so like a lot of what we had to do was get more efficient in the way our practices ran. So for
Yeah,
us, our practices originally when I joined, we had sort of more by the programming language, like because we were all engineers, we had like a Java practice, a Microsoft practice, a
yeah,
front-end web practice. And then we added user experience and
yeah,
product management and the more of those you get, the more your bench gets complicated because you got to have some of each skill ready to go
yeah,
if you win work. So having all this other stuff too, like rolling out a CMS or rolling out SharePoint, we would need to have people with those skills too.
yeah.
So in a way, it made us more efficient than before because we only had
So
five or
fine.
six sort of core
Yeah.
skills we had to have.
Now, actually, we've talked through this before when we've been talking about the book. And this sort of maturity model that we spoke about on the first podcast, which I really loved. It was the idea of when you're running company or getting it through, that there's almost two sides to the coin or two sides to this that you need to focus on, which balance is always a hard thing. And you described it as in like operations and growth. And so I think talking like one is like growth it almost seems obvious. You need to sell, you need to be out there, you need to be winning new opportunities. There needs to be consistency in your pipeline. There needs to be reliable forecasting and wins, diversification across customers, this sort of stuff that seems maybe slightly obvious, but people, it's like, yeah, you've got to get out there and sell and win new business. But on the
Yeah.
other side, you have to really optimize how you operate those wins, right? How are you internally making sure that you're sort of running the engine as profitably and sensibly, strongly as possible. I think you've mentioned that a little bit. Do you want to talk a bit more about that sort of at next year? Because those are two, like doing both of those at the same time is hard without stating the obvious.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's really, I had a great delivery lead, and he would put together things that were kind of, because they're kind of intertwined. Like, like
Yeah.
I was saying, if you sell SharePoint rollouts, you got to have some
Got to have the
SharePoint
people.
skills
Yep.
in your team, right? And so, um, as we were trying to get discipline around it, he had this chart he would make that I loved that was like, certain things, like if you want to sell custom software with a great user experience and a product manager, you're in this sort of green box. If you want to sell, and then he had like some examples of new technologies that we didn't really have people, like we will figure it out, like because we
Yeah.
want to do these things, we don't do them today. So just know that when you sell it, we're going to be figuring it out just ahead
Yeah.
of the client. And then he had this like area of you're on your own. If you sell something in this set of technologies, like we really can't help you. We don't have anybody that knows
Yeah.
this,
Right.
and we don't really want to have anybody that
No.
knows this. So like we don't aspire to it. So yeah, you're gonna just have to hire your own people locally somehow and deliver it and
Yeah.
tell us how
Sure.
it goes.
Yeah.
Um, so I think getting that kind of coordination ahead of selling work where at least people know, because we did want, you're always fighting this tension of when you decentralize like that, everybody is entrepreneurial who've hired great people. They all want to
Yeah. They
innovate.
want to get out there,
And
sell the dream, just say yes,
yeah,
win the
and you
client.
want to have a single model, like a
Yeah.
single brand that we're all kind of doing this playbook and we stand for something and it's really important. And
Yes.
yet these people are out talking to clients. Clients are telling them all the things they want and
Yeah.
they want to innovate. So like you're constantly in this tension. So I like the way this guy Colin put it because it was sort of like just know where you're standing. Like you can do any of these three boxes if you want
Yeah.
to, but
But
just know if you're in the you're on your own box. Like you better have a long-term reason why you're going to go out and do that one thing because you think that you'll sell lots of other work in the other two boxes with this client.
with this
That's
client.
the,
And that is
yeah,
often the hard thing. Like it can be sound easy to say, well, we do A, B, and we just don't do C. But when you have a long-term client that's 20% of your revenue who's starting to request things in that C box, you're not going to say, well, it's very hard to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't do that. Feel free to go and look to a competitor. That's not what you want
yeah.
to be saying. You like that, and that's how you quite often get drawn. Now we've got some questions in the chat, so I'm just going to read these here for us, Mark, while we're chatting. Okay, this one was
Okay.
at the time when the revenues were going down and you were wanting to invest by hiring new people. How were you funding that investment?
Yeah, that was yeah, because a few things. So I thought the only way out of this tailspin we were in was to hire really good go-to-market people.
Yeah,
And they ended up also being the people that could help me decentralize the company. I didn't
yeah,
really
right.
fully understand that at the time. I was mostly trying to hire sales power just to get some new revenue because I felt like revenue would fix everything.
This is it. That's the
So
first side. See, get the rev. Of course, you more sales, more sales. Yeah,
yeah, and so I was lucky that the firm had been profitable for a while when I joined. So
yeah,
on the balance sheet, we probably had north of $2 million.
yeah,
And, going from 39 to 34, we started losing money. And we were right around zero on the balance sheet. We were
right.
approaching zero, which is pretty scary. And but I just felt like we needed to hire these three people that would they were practitioners who had experience in large firms and also experience in smaller firms.
Yeah,
And they could be in their market and they could kind of sell our new differentiated offering. And they also came in with a network of people that
right.
they knew
Okay.
that trusted them. And that was going to
Yeah,
hopefully lead to early sales as well. And so we it was completely irresponsible financially as our
Right.
balance sheet was heading towards zero to go find three expensive people and
Yeah.
hire them. But we did anyway, because I just didn't see any other way that like we
Yeah.
were gonna get out of it if we didn't have somebody turn the sales around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
But
um
it sounds like, to interject there, that you were pretty clear on what you wanted to be selling. Like when you said that you knew
yeah,
that they
by
would be
this
able to
point,
sell the new.
yeah.
So you'd already done some work to say this is our sweet spot. This is where we want to go for. So I'm going to like be confident that I'm not just choosing, dare I say, another salesperson, but someone who is like clearly, an expert in the area. And they sound like they came with a little bit of a network. So you had a little bit of a buffer there. You know what I mean? You were like,
Yeah,
even if they come
yeah.
in for a while, they're going to connect up some parts there. So I guess that's how you justified the spend.
Yeah, the term we used for their role was client partner. So I kind of
Yeah,
stole that from the Accenture playbook. They now call them
sure.
managing directors, but
Right.
back in the
Yeah.
partnership days, that's who these people would have been. And
Yeah.
yeah, but it was we skirted zero on the balance sheet for a while. We actually got a
Right.
loan, like a revolving line of credit to kind
Yeah.
of get us through. And then
All that scary stuff.
yeah, once we flipped it, we began to put money back on the balance sheet. It took a
Yeah.
while though.
You.
Yes.
You can more confidently go into those board meetings. Now, this is one here which kind of ties in with that as well. I wanted to ask, when you say you hired people owning their piece and running with it. Now, this is actually something that I've been talking to clients, a lot of Projectworks clients about, actually. About the question is, what was the financial model to attract and attain talent? Were the new folks in key positions given equity? And also, when I say I've been talking to Projectworks clients about that, it's sort of like, how do you attract new talent, and when you get them, how do you keep them? But also, like, different metrics, like, how do you incentivize
Yeah,
people on the
yeah.
right stuff? I mean, it's pretty clear that a salesperson gets incentivized on new wins, but delivery, for example, like, how are they incentivized around
Yeah.
hours, all that jazz?
Great, great question. This is actually one of the pieces that I think really powered Nexian. So there's
Yeah.
kind of two parts, like how did we compensate them and was there equity? So let me
Yeah.
so I need to talk about both, but how do we compensate them? This was something that was kind of in place when I arrived and we improved upon it, which was we paid our client partners roughly 2% of the revenue they managed.
Yeah.
And so what I added to that was that revenue in a same client had to grow 25% a year to keep their 2%.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they had to deliver 37.5% account margin to keep their 2%. So
Yeah.
either of those, if they missed either of those goals, it could cut it in half.
Yeah.
So they could get cut all the way down to 0.5% of the revenue if they weren't growing and delivering
Sure.
margin.
Yeah.
New clients had no prior year to compare to, so the
Yeah.
growth thing was free. So everybody
Yeah.
liked new clients, which
Yeah.
was this kind of funny glitch in the thing,
In
but
the
it
matrix.
actually was good
Yeah.
because it brought us a lot of new clients.
Yeah.
Um, and there was no cap.
Yeah.
So we just had worked out that we could spend between 4 and 5% of our revenue on cost of sales.
Yeah.
And so we gave roughly half of it to the client partners and roughly half to, we had a small group of what we called hunters or salespeople whose
Yeah.
main job was to just
Just
find
to
new
bring the
clients,
new.
open the door. Almost by meeting one or meeting two, they bring in the client partner to start talking about a
Yeah.
solution. But it was really hard to get to that first meeting.
And the client
So
partners were more technical than the hunters.
much. They had
Yeah. Yeah.
all either written software, designed software, been a product manager, or at
Sure.
least been like some kind of,
They could
yeah, they've
actually took,
all,
rather than just the wheeling dealing side, they were the person that had solution. Yeah.
our buyers insisted on that.
Yeah.
So not all of our client partners were kind of practitioners
Got it.
of,
Yeah.
and so I think in whatever field you're in, if it's engineering or architecture, whatever it may be, I think clients want to talk to practitioners.
I think they do. Yeah.
So yeah, so when we would go to these people that were in large firms and say, we're going to pay you 2% of whatever you manage
Yeah.
and sell, and it's uncapped. The
Yeah.
really good ones would hear uncapped and say, I'm going to make a
Go for it.
huge amount of money at
Yeah.
this. And
Totally.
some of them
Yeah.
did. Some of them
Yeah.
would get seven figures out of us. And
Yeah.
we were happy to do it because it just meant there was more revenue.
You're
Like it
feeling
just
great.
kept going and
Yeah.
it fit our model and it was still 4 or 5% of our total.
Yeah.
So knock yourself out. That was kind of our view. So
Yeah.
that I think was a big part of what drove getting really great talent in and then having them really grow it.
Yeah.
I did give out equity as well.
Cool.
I wanted to give it to everybody, which is what you typically do in a software
Yeah.
company. Harder to do in a services company. We ended up settling on giving it to everybody down to roughly a director level. So, kind of leadership of the company. It was still 50 to 100 people. I would give talks because a lot of
Yeah.
people in software have had equity and had exits. And then once you've had an exit, you learn a lot. And the next time you ask a lot more questions and you really understand what you're
Yeah.
getting. Um, so I would explain it and actually had people come back after we sold the company and there was a payout that was pretty nice. They're like, I didn't really believe you when you told me about all this equity, but it turned out you
What a
were
wild
right.
thing to say to the CEO
Right.
that delivered, that helped deliver you a.
I had a
But
lot of funny
yeah,
random things.
that's true.
Trying to
Yeah.
sell the company. My favorite one was I had to get everybody who had any stock in the company to sign some of the closing papers.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so there was this one person that had left and I hadn't talked to her in 3 years, and I was trying to text her, and she thought it was like some kind of scam
Of
that like,
course. Like those
and
messages you get, like Mark wants you to sign up, but you're like, no. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It took me like 3 days to get her to like, I was like, call these other three people you used to work with and
I
ask
promise you
them.
that. Now, do you think, with that in mind, because you're absolutely right. Some people, even if it's motivating for them, don't understand how much that might pay them out in a successful exit.
Yeah.
Do you think that's important? Do you think it's important for either all or key people in a company to have equity?
For me, it's like a personal passion. I just think
Yeah.
it's if the game we're playing is capitalism, it gives everybody access to the
Yeah.
capital and everybody operates more like an owner. And
Yeah.
for me, I like working with groups of owners. Everybody sort of you see people correcting each other over like,
Yeah.
do you
I
really want to
agree.
spend that much of the company's money on that? Or
Yeah.
wouldn't it be better if they operate like owners because they are.
Totally. Or
Um,
even more likely to challenge, like I think if you're in a bigger org, you're like, oh, well, that person, that's their lane and they're in it, rather than being like, are we sure this is the best we can do? Or like, I'm not sure that's the best idea. Or like, yeah, because you're like, wait a
yeah.
minute, I'm so, invested in the success of this company because I do feel like it's, yeah, I agree. I think it's a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting some good questions on here, which is super cool. This one, the last one here is it right to say that the best people you got were from bigger firms with that uncapped incentive? Do you think, like talking about those three people you hired, that's
It's
the best?
really a great question. It's really tricky. The best people had been in, I'd say, a top 20 firm. So they
Yeah,
kind of learned the playbooks that those companies run. And then they'd been dropped into some small environment where
sure.
there's no resources. You have to
Yeah,
figure it
that
out
again, got to
yourself.
get your hands
Like,
dirty. Yeah,
yeah.
like you're
And
looking
because
behind you.
it's,
Who's the person who does this? It's like it's you. Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, like if you were to look at today's world and say, this person has been a salesperson at OpenAI for the last 3 years and their
Yeah.
numbers are off the charts. I'm like, did they do that or were they just sitting in the right place at the right time? And
Of
that there was
course.
like
Yeah.
this wave, right? And
Yeah.
so you need both. You need them to have absorbed the playbook,
Yeah.
but you also need for them to have been drawn. Like when you show up at a place, we were called Systems in Motion, then Nexient. Nobody had heard of us, and no one's going to
Yeah.
return your call. No one's
No,
going to like,
the
there's
hustle
nobody
is
saying
real.
like, oh, you guys are great. I want you to
Yeah.
help me. Like, so they need to have been in that kind of world too. So
Yeah.
I was trying to find both, which is very hard.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, we are on the 5 minute mark. So I'm going to start to land the plane a little bit here. Um, Before we wrap up, let's go back to those early walls. What do you think is some key advice you'd give people that are probably in that earlier phase? That poll was talking about hiring great people, winning new work, their own time capacity. I think those are all signs of those sort of early few years, maybe first 5 years. What would be some takeaways that you think you'd like to leave people with, Mark, that if you could go back and tell your slightly younger self?
yeah. I guess first off, in the very beginning, you do have to do everything.
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of listen to your own sort of feeling about what's happening. Like a lot of people probably feel like I am the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be a little bit of bottleneck, but like at some point you've just got to say, okay, the world is telling me I've got to change something here.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out when you are really holding the company back and then make those shifts either to get a team around you that can extend your bandwidth,
Yeah.
or if you've already done that and you're out of time again, now you need to get a team around you that can actually really run parts of the business without you being involved more than once or twice a week.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
really just trying to listen and maybe be honest with yourself about where you are. You're always going to be a
Yeah.
little bit of a bottleneck, but are you actually like impeding the growth of the company?
Yeah. And interesting when we're talking about those two sides, like the growth or the growth in the operations. Like I think maybe having a look at that, like how do you run quickly on both sides, and where are your strengths and where are you the most of a bottleneck, because sometimes I mean I guess a challenge if you know are more experienced in one area, like, oh, I'm just a natural salesperson, it's easy to have an operations person, like running that show, but I
Yeah.
think that's probably the first wall, is how do you get past you being that person.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think of myself as a natural salesperson.
Mm,
I grew up as an engineer and then a product manager, but I found myself spending 90+% of my time on the sales side and
sure.
trusting that the team would get the operations side right.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, to be honest, but I think I got drawn there because it's what the company needed. Um,
Yes, I think that's it. Sometimes you're totally right, just what the company needs, right? You just got to go
yeah.
where it finds you. Now, rounding back, I know we haven't got Doug on the call, but any other sort of thoughts you want to say on this book, Mark? Where can the audience get it? The interest
Yeah, well, I think we put a link in the chat.
we have.
You can
Yep.
get to our website. We can get you a hard copy, or it's been accepted by Apple. We're working
Yep.
to get it on Amazon, which is
I know.
tricky.
Not on Amazon yet. What's up with that?
I don't know. I got a weird little form letter saying they rejected us. So if anybody out there has experience getting stuff published on
Amazon. The
Amazon,
real
I
book,
could use some help.
Amazon. There's a lot of books on Amazon. I don't know why this one hasn't made it, but there we go. But no,
Yeah,
yeah, you can get an Apple, please. I think there's a link in the chat. I think our head of marketing has said, leave us a review. There's a link in the chat, and we will send you the book. We would love that. We would love to get some
that'd be
feedback.
awesome.
And it will also be shared by email for anyone who's registered or here listening in the next 48 hours.
Somebody in the chat is saying there's no link here. Maybe, I don't know, Jacob, it was probably went by a while ago, but
Yeah. It is. I think it's right at the top. There's a link. Well, I can see it, but that's it. Can everyone else see it?
okay.
So, oh, look, he's
Yeah, I think,
relinked it. Look, he's right there. Perfect.
yeah.
Um, and of course, we're going to come back with Doug when he's able. I'd love to
Yes.
chat with you and Doug about the book. There's so many cool things in that. I know we've spoken about growth walls, but like brand and go to market and funding and all that cool stuff. So heaps of stuff in there to be able to talk about when Doug's back on board.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
I think to wrap up, please subscribe to the Projectworks podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And I think we're coming back in 2 weeks' time on winning work. That sort of growth side, again, close to my heart. Winning work, I think, is our next subject. So really looking forward to that one.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for sharing, Mark. Lovely. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next time.